Hola, ¿qué tal? Les habla Raf Perales. Quiero invitarlos a que me acompañen en este programa. La Constitución americana también provee. Hello, I'm Ralph Perales. Welcome to Leyes, Codidianas, or Everyday Law, where we discuss the laws that affect you every day. Today we're going to be discussing the Home Affordable Modification Program, or HAMP, as it is known for short, which is a product of the TARP relief program enacted by Congress back in 2009. And I have the pleasure of having Rick Alembic, an attorney that practices in Decatur, the metro Atlanta area. Welcome, Rick.
Glad to be back.
And let's start out by discussing a little bit about Georgia's foreclosure process, because it's a little bit different than most states. You don't have some judicial protections that you can see in other states. Just briefly give us a primer on that.
Georgia has what we call non-judicial foreclosure. That's contrasted with some states like Florida, where the foreclosure process goes through the courts. Georgia's foreclosure process involves a lender, a borrower, and a home. If the borrower defaults on the loan, the lender can go to the courthouse and basically sell the home on the courthouse steps without having to go through the courthouse and going through a legal process.
And in fact, the homeowner gives the lender that permission at the time of purchasing the house when they sign the security deed and all those documents.
That's true. Most people don't know it, but when they sign what's called a security deed, which is basically collateral for the loan that they get to buy their home, the security deed includes what we call a power of sale, and the power of sale is basically gives the bank the authority to sell the homeowner's home if the loan defaults.
Without even having to go to court.
Without having to go to court, simply satisfying a few requirements of notice, publication in the local legal organ that nobody ever reads. It's a very straightforward process. It can go as quickly as 30 days, and the home can be sold on the courthouse steps.
And unfortunately, many people are becoming acquainted with our foreclosures laws in the state of Georgia. But let's sort of talk about this Home Affordable Modification Program. As I stated, that came out of this TARP program, which was the Trouble Asset Relief Program enacted by Congress back in 2009.
It's actually the end of 2008, beginning of 2009. Congress, sort of in a panic mode, passed legislation that provided a $30 billion fund to directly help homeowners whose homes were either underwater or who the homeowners whose loans got behind on their loans, to help the loan servicers to modify the actual mortgage. In other words, to reduce the monthly payments, reduce the principal, reduce interest rates. And the money was to give the servicers and the mortgage companies incentive to reduce the cost of servicing one's home mortgage. And that was a great idea in principle. Unfortunately, I think in their haste, Congress didn't really think through how the program should have actually been enforced. The enforcement has been through a federal agency known as Fannie Mae, and a lot of people are familiar with Fannie Mae.
Let me ask you, because folks hear Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and they do play a role in this program. So just kind of tell us a little bit about what they do, who they are.
It's important to understand that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are basically, they're almost like reinsurers. They back up the bank's mortgages. If the mortgage goes into default, Fannie Mae will often guarantee that mortgage. It gives lenders incentive to lend if they know that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will back up the mortgage. The problem we have when we tie that into HAMP, because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac essentially work with the banks. They're kind of on the same team, but Congress made Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac the regulator, the referee of the HAMP program. As a result of that, they've not been very aggressive. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have not been aggressive in actually enforcing the requirements of the HAMP program, because the banks are their own clients, and they don't want to make life difficult for the banks, even if the banks are not quite following the law.
Okay. You mentioned that the fund was approximately $34 billion?
Approximately $30 billion.
Okay. And where are we on that fund? How much have we used?
Only a fraction. I believe it's somewhere between $3 and $4 billion. I could be wrong. As of today, those numbers could be a little higher. The bottom line, though, is the way Congress was applying a metric to the concept. Congress wanted to try to prevent up to 3 or 4 million foreclosures based on the amount of money that they procured for the program. In reality, today, maybe 700,000 to 800,000 foreclosures have been prevented.
Okay. And approximately how many foreclosures are expected over the next couple of years? Do you know?
The trend is between 2008 and 2012, there is expected to be as many as 12 million foreclosures in the United States.
And 2 years, about 2 years, almost 3 years into the program now, we've only prevented 700,000-800,000?
Less than 1 million foreclosures. And more could easily have been prevented had the program been properly implemented.
Is that because of the implementation? And there's been a lot of criticism about banks not doing enough to prevent these mortgages.
There's a lot of debate as to why it's not working. I think the obvious thing to me is that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac don't really have a whole lot of incentive to penalize the banks who are not actively pursuing the HAMP program with their borrowers. Okay. And I can explain why that's not working at the ground level.
Well, is this a mandatory program for the banks if they have a mortgage that is backed by either Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae? There's no option; they have to.
That's right.
Provide this.
Exactly. For the clients of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're actually required to participate in the program, and banks who are not affiliated with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they're not required to participate, but they can join into the program.
Okay. Other than making somebody go through about 60 pages of legal documents that they may or may not have received, I know they're required to be received at the closing of the house, is there a way that they can find out whether their loan is a Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae backed loan?
Usually their servicer, if you know the servicer, the major banks, Bank of America, the ones you hear about every day, I mean, they're pretty much all going to be backed up by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. But there are websites you can go to in which you can identify your servicer, put them in there, and in the website, and they will tell you if it's a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac backed loan.
And I think the website for Fannie Mae is just fanniemae.com, and Freddie Mac is freddiemac.com.
That's right, Fannie Mae, FANNIEMAE.com, and then a slash, and then loan lookup is that address, and then Freddie Mac, FREDDIEMAC.com/mymortgage. Okay.
Well, let's talk about if somebody out there is listening right now and they want to know if their loan qualifies for this relief program, the HAMP program. What are some of the things that, what are the criteria?
Well, first of all, assuming their lender is in that program, the servicer is in that program, they should contact the servicer, obviously, to ask them to send a package. There's usually a packet or package that's associated with the program that they'll receive. Okay,
and just so folks understand, the servicer is not necessarily the mortgage holder, the bank, correct?
That's correct. It's often a different entity.
And it's going to be pretty much where you send a check.
Wherever you send your check, they're going to be the servicer.
Okay.
And they should provide you with information regarding, where to send your check, where to send specific requests, because different addresses will correspond to different types of requests.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go through some of the criteria. I mean, who is eligible to participate in the Home Affordable Modification Program?
Well, first of all, they're not. It's only available for primary residences. If you have
no rental properties.
No rental property. If you have a vacation home, another vacation home, it's not going to qualify. And also, the mortgage amount has to be somewhere under $700,000. It can't be. We're not talking about mansions that are going to have that are going to be refinanced. Although I guess in some places, a $700,000 home is a lot bigger than it is in other places.
That would be true.
So. But generally speaking, it's got to be that sort of a situation.
It only applies to your first mortgage. Is that correct?
And that's important to know. If you have a second mortgage, HAMP is not going to assist with modifying that. And that you've identified one of the areas in which one of the problem areas for HAMP, in that a lot of people these days have first mortgages, and sometimes they have second mortgages, or they have what we call HELOCs, home equity lines of credit. And back in, before 2008, a lot of people were were getting mortgages and actually financing the down payments with second mortgages that often would balloon or that would have, kind of ridiculous interest rates. And so those second mortgages are preventing a lot of the HAMP modifications because HAMP simply doesn't address those.
Now, when you say it prevents them, are you automatically disqualified from participating in the program, or is just that because of the second mortgage you don't meet some of the other criteria like the debt-to-income ratio or whatever it may be?
The debt-to-income ratio is affected obviously by a second mortgage, but also you have to have a voluntary participation by the second lender, the second position lender. They're not necessarily guaranteed any funds from HAMP, from the HAMP fund. They have little incentive.
But if a homeowner wants to do a modification on the first mortgage, not the second one, would the fact that there's a second one just disqualify you, or can you still go through the program, get the first one modified, and I guess you got to continue paying whatever interest rates you're having on the second one?
It won't disqualify you automatically.
Okay.
But again, it is a problem. It's something to think about.
Okay. You mentioned the debt-to-income ratio. Are we talking about, just briefly tell us, what is we talking? We're talking about principal, interest, taxes, insurance that you pay on the property?
It's basically what it sounds like. Whatever your debt is versus your overall debt to your income. And there's a formula. It's a fairly complex formula that the Treasury Department has generated. Okay. And what they're looking for is really, it's just really more of just a commonsensical type of approach to any individual's financial situation. You need to have a reasonable ratio of debt to income, because if your income is too low for your debt, then you're not likely to get help.
But modifying is not going to
solve the problem. It's not going to help you.
Right. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break and come back and keep talking about HAMP, the Home Affordable Modification Program.